You're listening to the Around the Huddle podcast, powered by PAC-Hub. Around the Huddle, college sports beyond the game.
Hello and welcome into episode 27 of the Around the Huddle podcast, where we talk about all things college sports beyond the game. I'm your host, John Gross. So happy to have you with us today. We are in mid to late October, so the fall season nearing its conclusion. Championship season is not too far away. Winter sports are a couple of weeks away. This is crossover season, right? This is as busy of a time of the year for anybody working in college athletics. So personally, I love it because I'm calling like 5 games a week, and I enjoy what I do. So it's fun, but it's busy. That's for sure. There's also a lot to talk about beyond the game, which is what we will be doing today. And it's what we do every episode on this podcast. But before we get to our topic today, a reminder that we are powered by PAC-Hub. Take a look at the bottom of your screen, pac-hub.com. If you are a student athlete and you are looking for that next school, if you are a coach and you are searching for that missing piece, PAC-Hub is there to help. If you are an athlete and you enter the NCAA portal, you want to find a way to stand out. How can you connect with coaches? How can coaches find you? PAC-Hub is a great resource. By signing up for PAC-Hub, it creates a profile for you, which populates with stats, eligibility information, all sorts of specifications that allow coaches to search for you and find that missing piece. And from the coach's perspective, same story. You can find that missing piece, that right-handed pitcher, that point guard that you really need to take your team to the next level. You can find it on PAC-Hub. So take a look, pac-hub.com, a tremendous tool for both student athletes and for coaches. Okay, if you go back over the summer, we discussed the SCORE Act. I believe it was in mid-July. We had sports attorney Sam Finkel on the pod to discuss the SCORE Act, which was a proposed piece of federal legislation addressing some of the major issues facing college athletics. Now, since then, there have been some developments in terms of letters being sent to Congress in support of it, letters being sent in opposition to the bill. Other bills have popped up somewhat related to the issue as well. We are going to focus on the SCORE Act, and we are going to focus on a conference commissioner who recently signed on to a letter in support of the SCORE Act. For those who may not have seen that episode, the SCORE Act is a multifaceted federal bill currently stuck in the House of Representatives that seeks to address large issues facing college athletics. If passed, it would codify the House settlement as federal law, would provide antitrust protections for the NCAA and its conferences, would unify NIL laws nationwide, because right now so many states have different laws, would codify student athletes as non-employees, limit agent fees to 5%, would ensure that schools maintain a certain number of non-football and hoop sports, and more than that as well. So to discuss this SCORE Act and some of the big issues facing college athletics, we are so excited and honored to be joined by Commissioner Michael Cross. He is the commissioner of the SOCON, the Southern Conference, conference that I've been fortunate to get familiar with, working for a couple of schools in the league over the years. He became commissioner in July of 2023, previously served as the managing director of communications for the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics, which follows stops at Penn State, Bradley, Princeton, and Michigan. And he is a former student athlete. He played basketball back in the day at Buffalo. So without further ado, let's welcome on the commissioner of the SOCON, Michael Cross. Commissioner Cross, thanks for joining me today.
John, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. The SOCON to me is so fascinating because it is such a diverse conference in terms of its member institutions, right? You have public schools like UNC Greensboro with a population of about 20,000 students, private schools like Wofford, sub 2,000 students, and then a couple of military institutions as well in the Citadel and VMI. So when you are advocating for the conference, what goes into making sure that all of these unique institutions are represented with what you're advocating for?
It's a good question, John. When we talk about advocacy and talk about what is our position, the core tenets for us, despite the diversity of those areas that you just talked about in terms of public institutions, private institutions, and military institutions, revolves around a few things. One, I think we have a very unified leadership and a view of what college athletics is supposed to be like. We've got a lot of budgetary parity across our institutions. I mean, not everybody has the same budget, but if you look at some of the A4 Power 4 conferences, and you've got budget ranges of $150 million from top to bottom. I mean, that's an incredible gap. We don't have that type of dynamic in our conference. We've got a lot of budgetary parity. There's a strong commitment to the academics within our conferences, and we got a lot of exceptionally good educational institutions. We take that very seriously, and competitively we continue to punch above our weight. And then the last thing that I think is crucial for us is we've got a very good geographic footprint. Our teams do not have to get in airplanes to travel. We've got an ability to have rivalries that people seem to have lost as they think about the conference shuffling and realignment games. So all of those factors combined create a pretty coherent opportunity to message things that we think are important in the landscape, whether that's in some type of legislative action or otherwise. And we try to build around those strengths and those types of things. And it actually led us to adding a conference, or sorry, I should say adding a school, month and a half, 2 months ago, with Tennessee Tech arriving in the not too distant future.
Yes, I do want to congratulate on the addition of Tennessee Tech starting next year. They've had an amazing football season, by the way. They've been fun to watch, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. In your role representing the conference, you recently signed on to a letter in support of the SCORE Act. 31 of 32 Division I conference commissioners signed on to the letter, all besides the Ivy League. Why does the SOCON support the SCORE Act?
Well, you touched on some of this in the front part of your lead-in here, which is there are some significant and real challenges that are facing college athletics right now that put the enterprise at risk. And I think it's reasonable, and as people start seeing some of the most recent lawsuits, particularly around eligibility that have emerged, I think the light bulb's going on and people are saying, oh, I get it now. There's a challenge here that has to be addressed. The NCAA and conference position on this is the right position because, again, this is supposed to be about an educational experience. So when you think about those three lanes that you touched on, the antitrust protection, and the word I think is important is a limited antitrust protection. People hear antitrust protection and think, oh, you're going to be able to do anything you want. The goal here is really around issues related to core components of what we do. So for example, what should a collegiate career look like? Should you have 5 years to play for? How many years of eligibility do you get? Should there be something even as basic as saying you have to be a full-time enrolled student? In our current landscape, those types of questions are subject to the whims of particular courts and particular venue shopping related to interest of individual student athletes, versus saying, okay, this is a understood standard and an understood core component of what college athletics should be about. So that piece of it is very important. The employment piece, I don't think you'll run into many student athletes who feel like they want to be considered employees. They want to be students first and athletes, not employee athletes. And that's true for the vast majority of athletes out there. It allows them to have an experience that is, again, revolving around this educational component as opposed to being treated like an employee and all the dynamics that come with that. And then the last piece really is one that I would describe as very important as well, which is this preemption of state rights. And you've got different states, some of which are in my footprint, going out and passing laws within their states saying you are not required to operate or follow the bylaws of a voluntary membership organization that you've decided to belong to. And that creates competitive challenges. And honestly, from my perspective, it creates a race to the bottom. We're all, the legislatures, the presidents, everybody's trying to be competitive. And as long as there's some understanding of what the ground rules are, it's creates a dynamic where there's some understanding of why are people winning, and it's about the athletes you have, the institutions, the coaches, all those types of things, as opposed to, 45 states operating with one set of rules, and then 5 sets of states operating with a different set of rules that really goes to some of this economic compensation aspect that we've, is core to what we're talking about here.
One of the things that really stood out to me about this letter that was sent to Congress was the unity. 31 of 32 D1 conference commissioners signed on to this letter. Power conferences, mid-major conferences. I know you have experience at a power conference school like Penn State, and now representing a non-power conference in the SOCON. Why do you feel that these conferences are so unified on this matter?
The unity on this issue comes from what I'm going to describe as relationship-based communication. And over the last few months, and look, the NCAA in particular and the Autonomy Forum in particular have been working at this for quite some time. And there has been increased dialogue around the interests that they have that align with ours, as well as some dialogue around, different types of governance questions within the NCAA that have allowed this group to come together and say, we can very comfortably support this bill. I'm learning a lot about the legislative process. I think some of my colleagues are learning a lot about the legislative process as well. We're not innate understanders of Congress and how that all happens. But the thing that we're learning is that you don't want to have perfect be the enemy of the good. I mean, ideally, you get a bill that's exactly what you want. I think we're going to try and move in those directions, but there may be aspects when this is all said and done, you've got to get a House bill and then you've got to get a Senate bill where this looks, I'm making this up, 80%, 90% about what you want. And there's some things you've got to compromise on to get the core components of what you're seeking. So we're very comfortable with the core components of what have been offered. Feel like it makes sense for college athletics. I don't have any presidents in my conference that say, geez, I really want the student athletes to be employees. Again, the antitrust protection focused on the limited piece, I think, is a key component for us as well. We believe in the educational components. And then lastly, the states' right question, probably a little bit less of an issue for us because of that budgetary parity, but in places where you've got budget disparity, making sure everybody's operating from the same set of playing rules and singing from the same hymnal, I think is important.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm one of the PAC-Hub's AI specialists. Today, I want to show you why PAC-Hub is the ultimate platform for college baseball players looking to transfer to a new college program. First, let's take a look at our extensive network of coaches. With over 150 coaches actively using our system, you have a huge pool of experts to connect with. Imagine having access to all these experienced coaches searching for talent like yours. You even have the ability to connect with any of these coaches via our internal messaging system. This means more opportunities to showcase your skills and find the perfect new team. Now let's switch gears and see things from a coach's perspective. Coaches can easily search for athletes by position or stat. Let's say I'm looking for a left-handed pitcher with good pitching stats. With just a few clicks, I can find top-performing pitchers who meet my criteria. This efficient search functionality ensures that coaches find the perfect fit for their teams and athletes get matched with opportunities that suit their strengths. PAC-Hub is all about connecting talent with opportunity. Whether you're an athlete looking to transfer to a new college team or a coach searching for the next star player, PAC-Hub has the tools you need to succeed. Don't miss out on the chance to be part of this amazing community. Join PAC-Hub today and take the next step in your baseball journey. Visit www.pac-hub.com to sign up now.
You brought up a great point about understanding the legislative process, right? Right now, this is currently stalled in the House of Representatives. I saw it earlier today. Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut, said that he felt the odds of this bill being passed by next year's congressional midterms was zero. But why is it so important to have federal legislation on these matters pertaining to college athletics compared to what the current situation is?
Well, there's steps that needed to be taken early on. I think a lot of the message that we heard back when these initiatives first started was, you have to go and fix some of your own problems. Like, don't just look to Congress to solve some of these issues. So there's been steps taken by the NCAA to, loosen transfer act rules. And there's certainly some byproducts related to that. steps taken by the NCAA to put in place opportunities for athletes to earn revenue through NIL. There's been opportunities put in place to extend health protections around student athletes and post-eligibility medical care and those types of things. So areas that I think were initially areas where legislators would say, why don't you go and fix that? I think the NCAA has taken a lot of steps to do those types of things. And then from there, the issue that you get into is trying to resolve some of the questions that are out there about how do we operate when we say as a membership, hey, we're all in one place together. We've got 360 some Division I institutions, and you've got states and individuals who go out and try and poke holes in that and say, well, you don't have to follow those rules. We're going to try and win on a different set of playing rules. We're gonna put 12 players on the field for football rather than 11. Like nobody would be comfortable with that. We shouldn't be comfortable with that in other places as it relates to the types of experiences that we're offering. And those are the types of things that really drive a lot of this conversation.
There's some talk out there that anything that's supported by conferences and by the NCAA is automatically bad for student athletes and vice versa. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that line of thinking.
Yeah, I do. Look, it's easy on either side of this debate to run to the margins and go, oh, the other side's terrible. Oh, the other side's terrible. Their way just can't possibly work, or our way, that's not reality. That's not reality at all. I mean, we are in the business of providing educational opportunities for thousands of athletes just across the Southern Conference that we're paying for education. We're providing room, board, books, tuition. We're providing cost of attendance stipends. We're providing Alston opportunities. We're providing NIL. Like, this is not a reflection of the reality that we live in today. The world has evolved a lot from where we were even 5 years ago, much more 10 years ago. So, and what I would say about that is, when I was in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago for Knight Commission meetings, and the Southern Conference was honored to be recognized as a care model champion from the Knight Commission. We were there to accept the award, had a chance to meet with senator staff from both sides of the aisle. And it was really interesting meeting with them. And again, I referenced before, it's not an area I'm super familiar with. And it was interesting talking to the staff from Senator Cruz's office and Senator Cantwell's offices, because at its core, I think there's some of that. There's like, oh, this isn't the right way to go about it. This isn't the right way to go about it. And as I come away from those conversations, I say, wow, you know what? There's actually a lot more agreement here than people may admit or want to admit. And there are solutions that we can get to. And I'm going to go back to what I said before, this relationship-based communication. People getting in a room, talking through the details, not trying to navigate this via tweet or via, provocative social media post, and work through the challenges, understand the other side's position, and get us to a place where we can say, you know what, this is good for all involved. It may not be 100% exactly what I want, but boy, it's pretty darn close. I mean, I'll give you an example. I don't think you're going to find anybody who says unlimited transferring is a good thing in an educational environment, whether you're an athlete or a non-athlete. Like, that is not a good recipe for achieving a degree in educational success. So if you take that component and look at what the SCORE Act talks about and what the SAFE Act talks about, there's language from both sides about what that's supposed to look like. One side says you get to transfer once. One side says you get to transfer twice. Okay, how do you resolve that? Both parties are acknowledging that transferring 4 times in 4 years and playing at 4 different institutions isn't a good idea. Can we get to a place where somebody says, all right, let's work through the nuances of this? Is it going to be 1 or is it going to be 2? And you've got to get some compromise there. Do you think about grad students differently as it relates to how you count? Do you think about non-scholarship athletes as it relates to how you count? Like, there's ways you can get into solving these things without getting too granular, but that's what needs to happen. Like, Like there's general broad language around a number of these places. Let's get those over the finish line and have some wins that have everybody feel a lot better about where the world is.
You referenced some of those points of contention. I look at a group like athletes.org. They've come out with a list of things that they disagree with in the SCORE Act, limiting NIL opportunities due to third-party regulation, capping athletic department spending. You mentioned the transfers as well. Have you had the chance to get feedback from SOCON athletes directly? And if so, what have their thoughts been?
So, we do talk and meet with our student athlete advisory committee. I mean, they're a new group. So this group turns over on an annual basis. So some of them are getting up to speed about what this looks like. And, the feedback that you generally get, and when I talk with student athletes as I travel to conferences, they are having an exceptionally good experience in the conference. Okay, so let's start with that as a starting point. There are a lot of student athletes who have transferred in from different experiences. Some will say moving from a Power 4 into a mid-major, and some have moved up. And they're more experienced as a transfer student because they've seen what the world can look like in other places. And they go, they're more focused on what they want educationally, competitively, playing time-wise, those types of things. So as they start to have that experience and they come to this conference and go, wow, I can really have it all. I can be a productive student. I can be a successful competitive athlete. I can compete for conference championships and give myself an opportunity to go to the NCAAs. Those are the commonalities out there. And as I talk to them, there isn't any of them that go, wow, like, boy, I really wish I was treated as an employee. Like I want, those types of things to happen. I do think at the margins, there may be some occasions where you've got athletes who go, I wish I had more control of my day. If you get really into the grains of employment law, and I'm not an attorney and I'm not an employment expert, but there's these things called control factors, and the extent to which the athlete does or doesn't have control over their day and life starts to dictate how much you look like an employee. So solving some of those questions, I think, is legitimate, and I think a legitimate point of conversation. And those will be conversations that are ongoing. The SCORE Act is pretty much done. I don't know that there's a lot else that's going to happen here. The focus is going to really be on what is the Senate piece of the equation, and what can happen on that side of the legislative process to try and shape some of those things and get us to a good place.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm one of the PAC-Hub's AI specialists. Today, I want to show you why PAC-Hub is the ultimate platform for college baseball players looking to transfer to a new college program. First, let's take a look at our extensive network of coaches. With over 150 coaches actively using our system, you have a huge pool of experts to connect with. Imagine having access to all these experienced coaches searching for talent like yours. You even have the ability to connect with any of these coaches via our internal messaging system. This means more opportunities to showcase your skills and find the perfect new team. Now let's switch gears and see things from a coach's perspective. Coaches can easily search for athletes by position or stat. Let's say I'm looking for a left-handed pitcher with good pitching stats. With just a few clicks, I can find top-performing pitchers who meet my criteria. This efficient search functionality ensures that coaches find the perfect fit for their teams and athletes get matched with opportunities that suit their strengths. PAC-Hub is all about connecting talent with opportunity. Whether you're an athlete looking to transfer to a new college team or a coach searching for the next star player, PAC-Hub has the tools you need to succeed. Don't miss out on the chance to be part of this amazing community. Join PAC-Hub today and take the next step in your baseball journey. Visit www.pac-hub.com to sign up now.
Many student-athlete advocates have called for collective bargaining, which we've seen in professional sports leagues, but of course has not been a thing at the college level. What are your thoughts on collective bargaining in college athletics?
That term comes up a lot. And, the collective bargaining, as I will describe it, as an employment tool, obviously that doesn't fit what I'm advocating for. A non-employment arrangement where athletes are students and not employees. But from there are other ways that you can have a collective voice. The NCAA has expanded student athlete voice in the governance process already. Going back to the part about take care of some of your own issues, the NCAA has proactively addressed this and given athletes more voice. The SCORE Act, as it currently reads, I believe has language in there that expands student athlete voice as well. How that will ultimately play out is unclear to me. But athletes are going to have, and already do have, a much stronger involvement in the decisions around their experience than they've ever had before. So that's the starting point. And then from there, you got to get into a conversation about, okay, well, how much and in which areas makes a lot of sense, and how much is too much. So it's certainly not going to be 100% decision making. I would suggest there may be areas from a business standpoint that might not make sense. I mean, look, the NCAA's March Madness agreement, even conference commissioners, like, we might get some bits and pieces, asked for our thoughts, but we're not negotiating that. I mean, people who are professionals in the television world are negotiating that. And I'm not sure bringing in people who really haven't had those experiences to try and sort out billion-dollar television deals is quite where we should be either. So, but around their experience, non-employment, those types of things, I think that's a dialogue that we should continue to have and continue to talk about, making sure athletes have a voice in the process. And again, what I said before, just going to the extreme and going, this is bad. That's not how to get us over the finish line and have improvement for athletes and improvement for the institutions that are trying to hold together what I would argue has been an incredibly successful educational experiment over the past 100 years since the NCAA was founded, to keep this experience going and address and get some course correction on some of the things that may not be exactly as they should be.
Final question for you today, and again, extremely grateful for your time and insight. As I mentioned before, earlier today, Senator Richard Blumenthal said that it is highly unlikely that the SCORE Act would be passed by next year's midterms. Let's say that this bill is not passed. Let's say that Congress cannot get its act together and pass federal legislation related to college athletics. What do you think the future looks like for college sports in that scenario?
Well, I think so the biggest and foremost concern that I would have is just the onslaught of legal challenges that the NCAA faces. And they're expensive. I mean, let's just take the damages that were assigned and agreed to in the House settlement, put those on the side for a second. The billable hours that are being spent trying to navigate these, one-off test case scenarios is not helpful for what we are trying to do. And it's, I mentioned the eligibility piece before. How many years are the right number of years? Like, these are things that should be really core and easily agreed to as to what is happening in college athletics, rather than having this be framed as an economic proposition. I'm not saying there aren't economic aspects to this, there clearly are, but we've got to get to a place where there can be some agreement in some way about what exactly are we trying to do here. And my colleagues, presidents, people across the country, generally, I think you'll find incredibly high levels of agreement. This should be an educational experience. So let's start with that as a foundation, continue to lock it in. Is there nuance needed around basketball, football, maybe a couple other sports? Like, that's an open question that continues to be debated and discussed. But the lack of nuance and just saying, this whole thing is bad, throw the baby out with the bathwater, just doesn't work very well. I mean, this has been a successful enterprise. Again, thousands and thousands and thousands of athletes are getting educations on an annual basis. As somebody who has two sons, one who's graduated from college and one who's a senior in college, they look and go, man, that's a pretty good deal. Like, gosh, I could get my tuition paid for if I were an athlete and I were good enough. They take that trade-off as opposed to working different jobs, taking student loans. And, a lot of our industry, we can't take that for granted. This is an incredible preparation for life after college. We're doing the vast majority of the things that should be happening, and we need to continue to let that operate in a very successful manner. So the lawsuit piece concerns me, not because you're going to get sued for a whole variety of things, but they're incredibly expensive. They're incredibly debilitating as it relates to having, again, a level playing field, reasonable competitive opportunity, and those resources are going to attorneys, not back into the educational enterprise that we should be doing. So that's where my primary concern lies. And look, there's things we've got to continue to do on our side of the equation to move these things along.
Commissioner Cross, I truly appreciate your time and insight today. Thank you for your leadership, and best of luck with your advocacy. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity, John. Great to talk with you.
There you have it. SOCON Commissioner Michael Cross joining us today on the Around the Huddle podcast. A great discussion. I'm sure that we will talk about the SCORE Act more on this podcast. Maybe get our good friend Sam Finkel, our resident sports attorney, to hop on and discuss some more recent developments. A reminder that we are powered by our good friends at PAC-Hub. Take a look at the bottom of your screen, pac-hub.com. If you want to learn more, if you think it could be of use, I highly recommend taking a look, pac-hub.com. And also, please like, comment, and subscribe. By subscribing to our page, you will get notified every time that we post a new podcast. By liking and commenting, it helps us get more engagement, get more views. And if you comment, feel free to leave a topic or a question that you want us to address on this show. Once again, a big thanks to all of you for joining us. This has been the Around the Huddle podcast, powered by PAC-Hub.